Hey, welcome back, Simmers. I'm Rob, aka ShipDriver71, and today we will be flying a New York to Boston shuttle in the TFDi Design 717. Lately, the two airliners that have gotten the most flying hours from me have been the TFDi 717 and the Mad Dog X, basically two generations of the same plane. And even though I had the Mad Dog back in my FSX days, I didn't fly it a whole lot. So I'm pretty inexperienced with these types, and I've been trying to get up to speed recently. Although we start off at ImagineSim's LaGuardia, the vast majority of this video is the approach into FlyTampa's Boston rebooted. In addition to FlyTampa's airport, I have the Aerosoft Cities X Boston activated. Note that this city scenery has no night lighting or seasonal ground textures, so I only use it in the spring and summer and only during the day. Now I have SimStarter profiles for day and night operations, and the night profile disables the Aerosoft city scenery. One thing though about the Aerosoft Boston is that it actually seems to generate a small improvement in FPS on my system over the default city. So that's pretty good. Underneath these add-ons are, as usual, ORBX's FTX Global and Open Land Class North America. Ultimate Traffic Live is set at 50% for both airports. Although I really like the TFDi 717, I will admit that it is pretty short on documentation. You know, if you look at PMDG, iFly, Majestic, all these other makers, they basically provide you almost, airline level manuals for these aircraft. You don't really have that for the TFDi. So button sequences and things like that have involved quite a bit of trial and error just figuring out how some of them work. I also discovered some behaviors in the autoflight system that led to subpar landings or go-arounds. One of which is the fact that I cannot for the life of me get this plane to follow nav speeds below 145 knots. And that is way above any approach speeds, let alone VREFs, that I've had. This, of course, leads to massive floating down the runway if I come in that fast. Now, when you program the flight plan in the CDU, the flight plan does incorporate approach speeds from the approach page, but the plane will not respect those speeds regardless of flat position, keeping speeds no lower than 145 knots. The only way I've been able to get around this is to dial in a speed on the glare shield manually, or go full manual with throttle control. Of course, I had to figure out how to do that. It turns out it's right-clicking the knob after dialing in the speed. Also, the annunciator likes to tell you to increase flaps even though you're already at 40 as well. It's almost like the annunciator logic and the autoflight system as a whole is unaware of the current flap setting.
Stabilizer motion.
Another note about operating the 717, I'd had a significant crash to desktop problem. These were kernel-based .dll crashes that I had initially attributed to the 717 because for a while it only happened in that aircraft. However, I eventually discovered that it was a bug in P3D with its interaction with ActiveSky. Changes in precipitation from ActiveSky would immediately result in crashes to the desktop. It was most apparent in the 717 because I was intentionally flying into rain with it to see the true glass effects. There should be a fix in the next update from Lockmar, but in the meantime, enabling detailed precipitation in the sim cures the problem. Well, enough jabbering on for now, let's get on with the approach.
Altitude. Stabilizer motion. $1,000.
Flaps. Flaps. Approaching. 3, left.
$500.
Unstable. Unstable.
Autopilot. $300. Approaching minimums. $200. Minimums. $100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
One note about Ultimate Traffic and FlyTampa's Boston, set for use of crosswind runways, I frequently had AI aircraft landing or taking off from crosswind runways, and clearing the approach in Ultimate Traffic Live did nothing for that. On 2 attempts, I actually had AI landing on the same runway but in the opposite direction, specifically the AI landing on the 15 right runway when winds were coming from 300. It's one thing to land with a significant crosswind component, but to land basically going downright downwind, that's just weird. Performance-wise, I did get better frames and smoothness at Boston, even with Aerosoft active, than I did at ImagineSim's LaGuardia. FPS were actually very similar. It was mainly high 20s on my system with all the eye candy I've got activated. But stutters were definitely more noticeable at LaGuardia than they were at Boston. One setting that I had enabled for this particular flight on the FlyTampa configurator was low-vis runway lighting. That is why the runway lights were on during the day. Normally I would have this disabled, but because of the weather for this particular flight, I checked it. As you can see, the marshaller is on a very high ladder, and it actually made him hard to see from the cockpit. I was replicating an actual flight, Delta 2323, including the actual gate used at Boston, and because it was an elevated gate, GSX seems to expect large aircraft that are much higher up than the 717. This tells me that the coding for the GSX marshaller is based on the gate configuration and not the airplane. Well, as we wrap up here at Logan, I hope you liked what you saw. If so, please give it a like, and if you haven't already, by all means subscribe. And make sure you check that bell icon, and we'll see you next time.